Hi, welcome to Pat Talks. Thanks for joining me today. Charlie Kirk's book, Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Transform Your Life, came out not too long ago. I've ordered it, don't have it yet, so I haven't read it yet. But there's lots of talk about Sabbath, and I think that kind of triggered it. From what I understand, Charlie's talking about the seventh day and about rest and how to disengage from your daily life and have one day a week where you rest. So my question is, does the Sabbath have to be the seventh day? What if I have to work on that day? Can I rest on a different day? Or can I just rest on Sunday like everybody else does? And is there any problem with Friday worship for the Muslims? Fact is, a good share of the world already calls Sunday the Christian Sabbath, and they call Saturday, the seventh day, the Jewish Sabbath. So there's already this idea that there are two Sabbaths, and, can I just pick which one I want? Do I have to be Jewish to keep the seventh day? I heard a news commentator recently mocking Charlie Kirk and making fun of him for keeping the seventh day because he's a Christian after all. And Christians don't keep the seventh day, Christians keep the first day. So what is it, and does it matter? And is there any reason why we should keep Sunday the Christian Sabbath or keep Saturday the Jewish Sabbath? Or is it the Jewish Sabbath? I guess the best thing to do is start at the beginning. The book of Genesis, chapter 1, tells the story of God creating the earth in 6 days. And each day ends with, and the evening and the morning were the first day, the evening and the morning were the second day, and so on up through the 6th day. So it sounds pretty clear that we're talking about a real day, a literal day, not like eons of time. So we get to Genesis chapter 2 in the first 3 verses, and it tells us that God ended his work, and on the 7th day, he rested from his work, all the work that he had done. And then it says he blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. So it was a small crowd that first Sabbath. It was just God and Adam and Eve and the animals. Adam and Eve weren't even created until day 6. So the Sabbath was their first full day of life. And that's kind of interesting, don't you think? Because if they were to worship on their 7th day, they would have to be worshiping the following week on Thursday. But they're worshiping on God's 7th day. So they went into their first full day of life was God's 7th day, and it was all of their day of rest. It was the 7th day after 6 days of work, God's work. So the day was blessed. It says he blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it or sanctified it. So blessed means like to worship on or to kneel or to do an act of adoration. And the word sanctified, the day was sanctified, means something like to set apart or dedicate or make it holy. So it seems to me it's about the day, not about the people. So it wasn't go work for 6 days and on your 7th day you can rest. It was God's 7th day of the week, and it's set apart as holy. So come and enter into that day and be blessed with me, God. The Sabbath then defined a weekly cycle. The months were defined by the moon. The years were defined by the rotation of the earth around the sun. But there was nothing in nature that defined a weekly cycle, only the Sabbath. The Sabbath then was a part of everybody's life. It was a part of their way of counting. It was a part of their way of keeping time. And to this day, we still keep time by that weekly cycle. It's not that other cycles haven't been tried, but they just didn't last very long. But the weekly cycle has lasted ever since creation week. Time passed. We know about sin entering the world, Adam and Eve having to leave the garden, the first children born, the first murder, the earth becoming so wicked that God had to destroy it with a flood. The weekly 7-day cycle continued. God was there all the time, sending his heavenly influences upon the earth. God had a people. One of his people was a man named Abraham. God promised Abraham that he was going to be the father of a great nation. And he was. It came to pass. His descendants ended up in Egypt, where they had gone because of a famine. God had told Abraham ahead of time that his people were going to go into Egypt, be slaves, but that he was going to bring them out. These people were called after the name of Abraham's grandson, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. So they were called the sons of Israel, or the children of Israel, Israelites. So it was time for God to bring his people out of Egypt. He sent Moses to have a little talk with Pharaoh and ask Pharaoh to let these people go. Pharaoh wasn't too inclined to do so, but with a little persuasion from God, and you can read that in the book of Genesis and Exodus, he did finally let the people go. And the slaves walked out of Egypt, following Moses to the promised land. It was a long trip, longer than they initially thought it would be, but God used that time on the journey to bring them back into a knowledge of him. Probably those several hundred years of slavery had caused them to almost lose a knowledge of the Creator God. A few weeks into the trip, was the 15th day of the second month, so maybe about 6 weeks into the trip, food was running low and the people were getting hungry and they started complaining, and they even went so far as to accuse Moses and his brother Aaron of purposely bringing them into the wilderness to starve them to death. They were quick to accuse. God heard their cries, he heard their complaints, and he already had a plan. He told Moses, I'm going to feed people with something that's going to fall out from the sky onto the ground. They called it manna. Every morning, they're going to go out and pick this off the ground. You can find this story in Leviticus 16. Every morning, they're going to go out and pick this stuff off the ground, and they can boil it or bake it or do anything they want with it to make their food. There's a few rules about it. He said, every day, the people are going to go out and they're going to pick up just enough for themselves for that one day. If they pick up extra and try to keep it overnight, it'll rot. Except on the sixth day. On the sixth day, they're going to pick up enough for 2 days. And it's not going to rot because on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there's not going to be any manna on the ground. And the people will want to eat still. So they'll pick up enough on day 6 to have food the seventh day without working for it. That was the beginning of the Israelites coming back into a relationship with their Creator God. God followed up the manna with the law. He gave Moses the set of rules that was going to be the foundation of the Israelites' economy. It wasn't thousands of pages thick. It wasn't full of regulations, didn't require bureaucracies to help it run smoothly. It was simple, streamlined, and it covered pretty much everything. There were 10 laws or commandments. The first 4 were about God and what kind of relationship God wants from his people, what he requires of his people toward him. And then numbers 5 through 10 were the rules about how people are to treat each other, what they're to do for each other. I'm not going to talk about all of them today, but God considered the Sabbath commandment important enough that he put it right smack dab in the middle. It's in Exodus 20. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, not your manservant or your maidservant, or your cattle, or the stranger that's within your gates. Because in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and everything in them, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore God blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. This commandment makes it clear that the Sabbath has its roots in creation week. And to this day, most Christians still believe that the 10 commandments are good. At least 9 of the 10, right? I mean, nobody thinks it's okay to murder. Nobody thinks it's okay to steal. Nobody thinks it's okay to worship idols. They all agree that those 10 commandments are good laws for life. It's the fourth one that people seem to have a hard time with. The one that reminds folks to keep the Sabbath day holy. But the commandment is very clear and it defines it really well, I think. And it answers the what, when, where, and how or why questions that journalists are always supposed to ask to get the whole story. What are you supposed to do? Remember the Sabbath day. Keep it holy. When? The first 6 days of the week you work. The seventh day is the Sabbath. Why? It's the Lord your God who asks it of you. And what are you supposed to do? Don't do any work. Not you, not your children, not your servants, not even your animals. are supposed to work. And who says so? The one who says remember is the Creator God, the one who made everything. Seems to me like it's not really a choice which day. You can worship any day of the week, of course, and you should, but you shouldn't call it Sabbath. The only real Sabbath is the seventh day of the week, the day that God blessed, sanctified, or made holy, because the one who called it claims it. It's God's day. It's his blessing on that day. Sabbath then became a sign of the people who worshiped the Creator God, the Israelites. They were distinguished by the fact that they rested on the seventh day of the week. The trip from Egypt to the Promised Land ended up taking 40 years. When they were finally on the borders, ready to go into the Promised Land, Moses brought everyone together again to take stock of what God had done for them over those 40 years. He went through the whole 10 commandments again, and he read the whole fourth commandment to them again, and he added another meaning to it. It's in Deuteronomy 5, verses 12 to 15. He said, remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there by a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Now the Sabbath is a sign of the Creator and his ability to create, and it's not also a sign of the deliverer and his power to deliver from the bondage of slavery. Later on, the Jewish prophet Ezekiel tells us a third sign or memorial of the Sabbath. It's in chapter 20 of Ezekiel, verse 12. Moreover, I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between them and me, that they might know that I am the Lord who sanctifies them. So Sabbath signifies that our Creator God, the one who made the world and made us, knows best what we need and will provide everything we need. We're dependent completely on him for everything. And Sabbath signifies that God's our deliverer. We can no more deliver ourselves from the bondage of sin than Israel could deliver themselves from the bondage of slavery and bring themselves to the Promised Land. We're completely dependent on the work of Jesus to deliver us from the bondage of sin and to take us to the Promised Land of heaven. And Sabbath signifies that God is the sanctifier. He's the one who makes us holy and fits us for his kingdom. We can't cleanse ourselves. We can't make ourselves good, but God can. And Sabbath is a reminder that God can make us good. He can make us holy. He forgives us and he covers us with his robe of righteousness. And we are as holy as Jesus because we are in him and he covers us and he cleanses us. That's what Sabbath means. So on God's holy Sabbath, we can rest completely in him. We can trust him completely. David said in Psalm 51, verse 10, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. That's what he does. We can rest in him as the one who delivers us from sin and who cleanses us and makes us holy. I love the words in Ezekiel 36. I think it's verses 25 to 27. I will cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you. A new spirit will I put within you. I'll take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I'll give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you'll keep my judgments and do them. And that's why Sabbath has to be the seventh day of the week, and it can't be any other day. No other day is set apart by God as holy. No other day has the meaning, the significance, the reminder that God's our creator, our deliverer, and our sanctifier, and that we can trust him to save us. Sabbath is the best day of the week. I don't even think about the things that I have to do all week long. I don't think about schoolwork or housework or house repairs or weeding the garden or any of that kind of stuff because I'm resting in God from all my daily work. Isaiah describes it really well. God doesn't call us to rest from his work. He calls us to rest from our work. Isaiah 58, and this is my paraphrase. Isn't this the fast that I've chosen for you? To loose the bands of wickedness, to undo heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that you break every yoke? Isn't it to deal your bread to the hungry, that you bring the poor that are cast out to your house? When you see the naked, you cover him, and you hide not yourself from your own relatives. In other words, you do good for your own family. If you stop stomping on my Sabbath, stop doing your own fun, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and you honor him, not doing your own ways or finding your own pleasures or speaking your own words, then you'll delight yourself in the Lord. And he promises, I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth and will feed you with the heritage of Jacob, your father. For the mouth of the Lord has promised it. I love Sabbath. It's the best day of the week. Thank God. Thank you, God, for making this day for us so that we can rest in you and come to know you better. Thank God for Sabbath. And I hope that you too get to enjoy the freedom of Sabbath with Jesus. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at patarabito@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts. Love to get to know you. Thank you, and God bless you.